Hello and good evening, everybody, and I'd like to welcome you to tonight's episode of Album Rant. This being episode 55, and as you can see from what is in front of you, I am going to do my second Album Rant episode ever on the one and only Deep Purple, and I have chosen to focus my attention and my efforts on their fifth studio release entitled Fireball, released in 1971. Now, many people out there think that this is their second album, and in a way it kind of is, sort of, because it is their second album with this lineup, with this incarnation, but it actually is their fifth album. And believe it or not, I have not talked about Deep Purple too much on this channel. As I said previously, this is my second episode of Album Rant on this channel, and this is my 55th episode in total. I did do an album ranking on Deep Purple, which I will update towards the end of the episode as I need to, and I have talked about them in other episodes, but this is actually only the second full-fledged Album Rant episode that focuses on Deep Purple. So if you're just tuning in or maybe haven't really been keeping track of things, it's okay. I'm going to recap. I'm going to explain how we got here. They are a British hard rock group that formed in the mid-60s, I want to say, and their initial lineup was composed of Rod Evans on lead vocals, the one and only Ritchie Blackmore on lead guitar, Nick Simper on bass guitar, Ian Paice on the drums, he being the only member who has been on every album, and then of course the late Jon Lord on the keyboards, may he rest in peace. The guy was a legend. But believe it or not, these guys really started out, like I said, in the mid to late 60s. And they were really more of a psychedelic hard rock band, probably more along the lines of Iron Butterfly, believe it or not. But in 1967, they released their very first studio release entitled Shades of Deep Purple. And I've heard a lot of people criticize these first three albums, and I kind of get it because the sound is a lot different than what they're most well known for. But I really, really love Shades of Deep Purple. Now, back then, they were very, very highly concentrated or dependent upon covers. They did a lot of covers back then, but it's okay. But some of the highlights from Shades of Deep Purple, where we had a cover of Hush, we had a cover of Hey Joe, I believe we had a cover of Help, and some of the other highlights, we had Mandrake Root, and we also had And the Address, and I really, really enjoyed it. And that cover of Hush, they still do perform live in concert to this date. I saw them a few years ago, and they did play Hush, and I thought that was pretty incredible. But then the following year, in 1968, they released their follow-up album entitled The Book of Taliesin, or Taliesin. I think it's Taliesin, actually. I kind of struggle with the pronunciation, but, you know, you do what you can. But I also really, really love that one. And again, it was still very heavy on covers, but there was an amazing cover of Neil Diamond's Kentucky Woman, and I still listen to that today. I think it is a great cover, very catchy, very groovy. I loved it. Some of the other highlights from the second album, mostly the one I really want to talk about is the album Closer. It is a cover of River Deep Mountain High, and it's kind of weird, I'll say that. After the kind of instrumental intro, there's a section in there where I'm kind of like, guys, you are going off the rails here. You are just going too far out there for me. But once the song starts kicking in, it is great. But then in 1969, they released their third studio album, their self-titled album, just entitled Deep Purple. And, well, out of these early records, it was definitely the weakest. I mean, it wasn't bad, and I ranked it kind of in the middle on my Deep Purple album ranking video, but compared to what came before and after it, it definitely fell short a bit. But then in 1970, everything changed. The Mark I lineup dissolved. Nick Semper and Rod Evans are out. In comes Ian Gillan on lead vocals, Roger Glover on bass guitar, and when you combine them with Ritchie Blackmore, Ian Paice, and Jon Lord, you get the Mark II lineup. And this is considered by pretty much everyone to be the band's classic lineup. And in 1970, they released their fourth studio album entitled In Rock, or Deep Purple in Rock. I'm not quite sure which one you're supposed to say. I don't really care. But it was an absolute beast. I did do an album rant episode on In Rock, so I'm not going to talk about it too long. In fact, it was my second episode of album rant ever, so I really hope I do a better job here. I really hope I don't do worse. That would be a problem. But highlights from In Rock. We had Speed King, Bloodsucker, Child in Time, which may be my favorite Deep Purple track ever. Flight of the Rat, Into the Fire, Living Wreck, Hard Lovin' Man. And we also had a single that went along with the album entitled Black Knight, which I really wish had made it to the album. But then, after that, we're coming to the subject of tonight's review, which is Fireball, fifth album ever, second by the Mark II lineup, released in 1971. And here is the cover right here. I mean, it's okay. Nothing really to write home about, but I think it's all right. Creative, I'll say that. We have a little insert right here. We have some pictures of the band right there. No, right there. We have the credits. That's the band right there. This is produced by Martin the Wasp Birch, by the way, who is also well known for his work with Black Sabbath, Whitesnake, Rainbow, and Iron Maiden. There is the track list, and I will talk about that in a second. And over here we have the back. We have a picture of planet Earth. Now, unfortunately, you can kind of see the track list is very, very, very tiny. So I'm going to have to kind of zoom in there a little bit. Hope you guys can see this. But it all starts off with the title track. And it took me kind of a while to get into this one, but now I really kind of enjoy it. It's interesting, I'll say that. It starts out with what sounds like a machine running, and the truth of the matter is it's actually an air conditioner that has been turned on at the very beginning of this song. Yes, kind of interesting, like I said. Roger Glover, the bassist, said he wanted a machine to start off this song, and apparently the best that producer Martin Birch could come up with was an air conditioner, and well, from there a classic was born. But this thing is fast. I have heard many people say that this was the birth of speed metal. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but yeah, like I said, it's a very, very fast song and a heavy song. The golden light above you shows you where you're from. The magic in your eye bewitches all you gaze upon. You stand up on your hill, they beep up all around you. They wonder where you're from, oh yeah, they wonder where I found you. Like I said, this thing is very, very, very fast, and it's a good track. It's definitely very creative and very original, and that's a good thing. But then we come to the second track entitled No, No, No. And the title track was only about 3 minutes and 30 seconds, give or take or so. No, No, No is a lot longer, and it's also slower and more brooding, but nevertheless, it is a Deep Purple classic. Must we let them fool us? No, no, no. have we got our freedom? No, no, no. And I have heard some criticisms of the song because he says no, no, no too many times. I mean, that is kind of the title of the track, so you gotta kind of expect that, but I have heard people criticize the song for that, and fair enough, I get it. I still, nevertheless, really love No, No, No. It's got a nice little interlude in the middle, and the band kind of jams out for a bit, and sometimes I don't really like it when bands jam out, but I think Deep Purple pulls it off very, very nicely. And then, of course, as per usual, most songs are structured like this. It comes back in at the end, and we go right into another verse-chorus arrangement. And yeah, No, No, No is a great song, and I really, really love it. Now, folks, we are going to come to a rather complicated situation. Most of you, if you live in the U.S., you will notice that track 3 is a song called Strange Kind of Woman. Well, this is not actually the US release. This is the UK release. Strange Kind of Woman is a song that they wrote as a single before they started writing the songs for this album for Fireball. Well, the thing is this, Demon's Eye was the last song to be completed. The US, after the success of In Rock, wanted this album out in the record stores, ready to go. Well, the band wasn't ready because they hadn't finished Demon's Eye, but to appease them, they released it in the US when the US wanted it, which was early, and they just threw Strange Kind of Woman on there to replace Demon's Eye, which they weren't finished with. Well, I am reviewing the UK release. I am reviewing the release that is what the band intended, which is what you see in front of you. So I'm going to be talking about Demon's Eye. Demon's Eye is a very, very dark song. It is slow, and it's almost got kind of a bluesy feel to it. I wouldn't say it's blues rock, but it definitely has blues influences. They would become a blues rock band later, but not quite there. But yeah, again, it's got a very groovy rhythm, and I think it starts out with the keyboards, I want to say. And then the band starts coming in, and man, the guitar on this is just electric. It's just piercing like the edge of a blade. I love it. And the chorus kind of builds up for a bit and builds up until he finally goes, got the demon's eye, da-doom-a-doom-doom-doom-doom-doom. And yeah, Demon's Eye, great song. Strange Kind of Woman was apparently originally called Prostitute, and granted, the Rolling Stones do have a song called Bitch, but I don't think calling a song Prostitute would have really sold very well, so I'm guessing that's one reason why they changed it to Strange Kind of Woman. But it's about a friend who gets mixed up with some kind of evil woman but gets married to her eventually. What can I say? But having said all that, we are now going to come to a very, very controversial subject. Anyone's daughter. No, no, no. No pun intended, by the way. But getting back on subject, this is probably the band's first real major misstep. I do not like it at all. It sounds a lot like Bob Dylan, and I really do not like Bob Dylan. There may be people out there who are into this kind of music. It sounds a lot like folk music, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Many artists have done folk music, and it's worked very, very well, such as Queen and Yes and Led Zeppelin. This does not work well, in my opinion. This is definitely the weakest song from side one, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. It is the weakest song from the album. Apparently, from what I understand, it was an experiment that the band decided to do. They wanted to do something different, which I respect. I get it. You don't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And Ian Gillan described it as a good bit of fun, but overall a mistake. Well, it's on the album. I have to review it. It's crap. But my favorite from side one is kind of a tough one. It's either No 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 or Demon's Eye. I think I'm going to give the edge to No 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 tonight. Demon's Eye is a very, very worthy contender, but I just love the rhythm of No No No, and I love that it's dark and brooding, and it's kind of thunderous and stomping, and it just really, really gets me pumped up. So now we are going to come to side number 2, and it starts with the mule. And a lot of people describe this as an instrumental. It's actually not an instrumental. Ian Gillan does have vocals on this one, but yeah, it's not much, and it primarily is an instrumental. There is a segment in the middle where Ian Paice really gets to show off his abilities. And while I'm on the subject, 2 other bands that were around right around the same time called Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, they also had songs out right around the time that gave the drummer a chance to kind of take the spotlight, entitled Moby Dick and Rat Salad. Well, the mule would be Deep Purple's Moby Dick, in my opinion. They used to play this one in concert quite a bit. Again, in the middle, and this is available on their live album Made in Japan. Again, Ian Paice has a very, very extended drum solo, and it's great. I really love it. Fools is the longest song on here. Starts out very, very dark and eerie. I wouldn't call it scary or anything, but in 1971, people definitely probably thought it was spooky. But then after that kind of dark little intro, which I think is guided by the bass and maybe the guitar, I want to say, the band once again comes in and it's absolutely thunderous. Doom, 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 doom. I'm not sure if I did that correctly. I do not have these lyrics memorized to my detriment, but it's amazing. Again, it's another really, really dark number, just like Demon's Eye, and I think it's a definite underrated Deep Purple classic. Again, this thing is over 8 minutes. It's 8 minutes and change. There's another interlude in the middle where it gets very soft, and again, we kind of descend into a pit of madness, and it's kind of eerie in a little, kind of eerie in a sense. But like I said, the drums are kind of playing in the background, but then the band just comes right back and do their, once again, traditional verse-chorus arrangement, and the song just kind of fades out. Highly recommend Fools. But then at the very end, things just start kicking off once again, and we have the album closer, No One Came. This one is faster. This one has more speed to it. It's very up-tempo. I wouldn't quite call it upbeat, but I wouldn't call it dark either. But the rhythm is just, again, amazing. And it's basically doom, 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 doom. And again, I don't really know the lyrics, but he does talk about how he thought he was more like Robin Hood, like an outlaw dressed in green. And I'm not quite sure what he's going for there, but it's amazing. No One Came is a great album closer. Very fast, great rhythm. But I think my favorite from side number 2 is going to be Fools. Another day, it might be No One Came, but tonight it is Fools. Now, unfortunately, tensions were starting to rise with the band right around this time. And it's kind of a shame this lineup did not last longer than it did. It only lasted about 3 years initially. But it was Ritchie Blackmore's decision to go in this musical direction, kind of ditch all the psychedelic influences and become more of a straight, full-fledged rock band. And many people consider these guys one of the founders of heavy metal. And I definitely agree there. Well, after the success of In Rock, Ritchie really let it go to his head, and he got very arrogant, and he was kind of like, yeah, my idea is put this band on the map. my ideas made this band successful, and it caused a huge rift between himself and Ian Gillan, and I think that is one of the reasons why this lineup did not last any longer. It's a shame. And also, they were under some very, very intense touring, and a lot of the members came down with health problems, especially Roger Glover and Jon Lord, who had stomach and back problems. And I can understand that if you're performing every single night, it is exhausting. And so I really got to give these guys credit. But do I recommend Fireball? Yes. It is an absolute classic album. It is Deep Purple at their almost very best. And for that, I do recommend Fireball. Definitely check it out. Which version do I recommend? Probably the UK version, because I think I like Demon's Eye better than Strange Kind of Woman. But in a perfect world, they would have just eliminated anyone's daughter and replaced it with Strange Kind of Woman. That way, we would have Demon's Eye and Strange Kind of Woman and wouldn't have to listen to anyone's daughter. But, you know, you take what you can get. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about, and this is the second time I've had to update one of these, Deep Purple came out with a new album recently entitled Equal One. I think that's how we're supposed to say it. And they swapped out their guitarist. Steve Morse is no longer with the band. He was replaced by Simon McBride. And so this is the very first album with this lineup, with what I think is the Mark 9 lineup, believe it or not. Wow, I've come a long way. And so I have listened to it, I have heard it, and I'm going to update my Deep Purple album rankings. Now, what do I think of the album? I think it's more of the same, but at the same time, I do like the sound, and I think Simon McBride does a very good job. I think I like it a lot better than some of the Steve Morse albums, but let's just see how things panned out. Now, last time I kind of lost count, so I'm going to try not to do that this time. But 23rd place, last place, is still Turn to Crime. 22nd place is still Slaves and Masters. 21st place is House of Blue Light. 20th place is The Battle Rages On. 19th place is Rapture of the Deep. 18th place is Whoosh. 17th place is Infinite. 16th place is going to be the new album, Equal One. 15th place is Now What? 14th place is Abandon. 13th place is Bananas. 12th place is Perpendicular. 11th place is the self-titled 1969 album. 10th place is Perfect Strangers. 9th place is the Book of Taliesin. 8th place is Come Taste the Band. 7th place is Shades of Deep Purple. 6th place is Stormbringer. 5th place is Who Do We Think We Are? 4th place, Burn. 3rd place, Machine Head. 2nd place, what we talked about tonight. And 1st place is still likely to remain forever in rock. So anyways, thank you all for joining me tonight. I really had a great time talking to you. Next time, we're going to take a look at a band Sabotage Their Own Sanity. But until then, have a very pleasant evening.